If you've already got a website, but it's feeling a little lonely in there, you just need more traffic. And in this video, I'm gonna share all my best strategies that are proven to drive lots of traffic to just about any website. And where there's website traffic, paying customers and clients can't be far behind. So these are the same methods that I've been using and recommending to all my paid clients for years, along with some really new and exciting opportunities that are already showing some pretty excellent results. Now, these traffic generating strategies all fall under four main categories: paid, borrowed, earned, and owned. So there's something here for any scenario, yes, even yours, and you don't have to do everything I'm going to talk about here. Just pick out a few that sound the most doable for you. So if you're ready, let's start out with paid traffic. Now, the big reason you might want to go with paid ads is just that it works really fast. The con is if it works at all. And that's the double-edged sword of using paid advertising to get traffic to your website, because great ads work amazingly well, but it's hard to create an amazing ad. So you do always run the risk of losing some money, at least when you're starting out. And I do have a playlist of all my best paid advertising pro tips and strategies to help you create good ads and get your targeting right. And I'm going to leave that link down below in the description. Because the thing is, once you do get a winning ad and you can consistently put in $1 and pull out more than $1, it truly is like turning on a faucet. And there are a whole lot more options when it comes to paid traffic than you think, right? Most people's minds go straight to Facebook ads, but don't sleep on some of the other players out there like YouTube or promoted pins on Pinterest. And probably my favorite under the radar advertising option, especially for you local businesses, Spotify ads. And there is a whole separate category when it comes to paying for traffic, and that's influencers. More specifically, I'm talking about niche down micro influencers whose audiences would have a lot of overlap with your potential customer base. These can be people with like medium large audiences on Instagram or TikTok or even YouTube. So I would actually even put advertising on relevant podcasts into the influencer category, because in most cases, the hosts of those podcasts are going to be the ones talking you up. So whether you're talking to an influencer with a podcast or someone with a large social media following, all you would want to do is just reach out to them and work out some kind of a deal for them to shout out your product or service, along with a call to action to go back to your website. Now, I do think that paid traffic is a good idea, especially when you're newer and you need some quick traffic right away. As long as you can make your ads profitable, it's always going to be worth keeping a paid traffic strategy as at least part of your overall marketing mix. Okay, so that was paid traffic. Now let's move on to our next category, which is borrowed traffic. So this is any traffic source where you're basically borrowing somebody else's more established audience, usually in exchange for a bit of your expertise. So the two biggest examples of borrowed traffic that I can think of would be if you were to guest blog on an established website, or even better, appear as a guest on a relevant podcast. Now, the upside to doing this is pretty major, especially if you can get booked on to, that podcast as an expert in your niche, because you're basically being recommended by someone that the listeners all know and trust. Being put on a pedestal really is somebody who knows what you're talking about. And that kind of targeted and positive exposure can be huge. It's a little less impressive on a blog to guest blog, because let's face it, when's the last time you read a blog post and really put it together with the actual person who wrote it, right? But guest blogging and guest hosting on a podcast are both really valuable for traffic for a second reason. So that reason is you're almost always going to get a backlink to your website out of it. Because when you write a guest post for a blog, you're usually going to get a link in your bio at the very end. Or on a podcast, they're usually going to link back to your website in the show notes if you ask them to. And backlinks are still really important for good, solid search engine optimization, which is in turn good for traffic. Another way to use this borrowed traffic tactic would be going to the website Quora.com. So that's a really popular website where people ask questions on literally every single topic you can think of. People write answers, and then people will basically upvote the answers that they think are best. So what you want to do is just search Quora.com for phrases that apply to your business. For instance, let's say you're a contractor. So you could look up phrases like kitchen remodel, bathroom remodel, all those different keyword phrases that you can think of. Then you're going to see all the top questions that people have asked on that topic. Then for each of those top questions, you're going to go one by one and try to leave the most thoughtful, complete answer you can for each question. And then of course, don't forget to actually include the link back to your site in your answer in a way that really suggests that they could find out even more by clicking through this link. And yes, this can be time consuming and you're not going to win all of them. But if you can get your answer upvoted to the top of at least a few of the more popular questions, that can be really good for some long-lasting traffic. Okay, so now let's talk about the next traffic category, my personal favorite, and that's earned traffic. Now, it's my favorite because it's honestly the single best way to get long-lasting, meaningful traffic that's full of your most qualified prospects who are the most likely to actually turn into paying customers. And honestly, the biggest fans of you and your business. So what I'm really talking about here is traffic you earn through the amazing content you create. Now, as much as I love earning traffic through content creation, you do need to know that it's not easy and it doesn't work overnight. But once it does start working, you're in business, right? I can tell you that my business used to rely purely on search engine optimization, SEO, and being found in searches. But once I started my YouTube channel here and it started to take off, my entire business changed for the better. Suddenly my close rate over the phone was way higher because the people I was talking to already felt like they knew me a little bit. In other words, they were much warmer and further along in the decision-making process because they already knew what I was all about. There was trust there, as opposed to when they would just find my website through Google. I had to do a little song and dance routine selling myself to these business owners who just didn't know or care who I was, and that was a lot harder. But then thanks to being discovered on YouTube, I was closing way more. It was easier to do, and I was able to charge more because there was more of a demand for my services. So that's the real power of earned content-based traffic. And it's not just limited to YouTube, by the way, right? You can find audiences there with a podcast, with a blog, or even on social media if you're really serious about it. But even if you're on social, I still recommend focusing on, producing weekly content that's either video, podcast, or written blogs. Because when you create videos, people can find you through search on YouTube. When you create podcast episodes, they can find you through Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if they watch or listen to a few of those shows, they're going to be curious enough to follow you back to your website. And if you create a blog with weekly helpful content that people are actually searching for, that's a really great long-term SEO play that can pay off big time. Okay, so now let's talk about another kind of traffic, and that's traffic you own. So here's the thing. A very small percentage of the people coming to your website today are ready to take that next step yet. And the odds are pretty stacked against them remembering to come back to your website on their own. So what you really need, and what every business should be focusing on here, is having a mechanism in place to drive that repeat traffic. And that mechanism I'm talking about, we usually do this with a great lead magnet. So this is a downloadable piece of content that's so enticing that people will hand over their email address to get it. And then once they've done that, you now have a direct line of communication with them via email. So you'd want to automate a sequence of emails that are very focused on helping them with actionable advice or tips or even inspiration, not focused on promotions. So if you can do that and offer them helpful content like that week after week, you're going to get them back to your site for repeat visits, and that's where the real magic happens. And if you're really serious about getting those repeat visits and just really making sure that your website is even ready for all this new traffic, I want to invite you to my highly rated free masterclass training, the Wildly Profitable One Weekend Website Blueprint for Service Businesses. So this is going to get you all set up with my time-tested, proven website format that's going to turn way more casual visitors into paying clients than with any other type of website. So click right here and I'm going to email you the 60-minute masterclass. Trust me when I say this is going to be the best hour you'll spend on your business all year. So click right here and we'll dive right into the blueprint.